Thank you. Thank you very much, Director Dolby, for that very too kind introduction. I trust all of you know what Abraham Lincoln said about kind introductions. Honest Abe said, never take time to deny it. The audience will find out the truth soon enough for themselves. And so it will be with you here today. I also want to thank you for that wonderful reception, those of you in the audience. It's my honor to be here in this place on this day, and I don't take it lightly. I stand here before you as a reporter who got lucky, very lucky, as one who dreamed since he was a young boy of being a reporter and has lived to become one and remain one. I can be dumb as a fence post about a lot of things, but at least I'm smart enough to know how lucky and blessed I have been. It's important for me to say to you at the outset, I have no particular wisdom to impart to you here. What I'm going to try to do is reflect on some of the things I've learned, some of the things I've come to believe, and questions that roll around in my mind from time to time. Much of my career has been in and is still dedicated to what we call investigative reporting, as the phrase has become known to understood. Vertical, down deep, digging reporting, especially when it involves taking on powerful people in positions of great power. For whatever reasons, I have a passion for doing this, but over and above that, I believe that this perhaps is the most essential kind of reporting that must be preserved, protected, and treasured as we move forward into whatever the future of American journalism is to be. The subject at hand here today is the future of news. Whether quality journalism can and will survive as a vibrant part of our nation's system of checks and balances, and whether it is to remain a strong voice in speaking truth to power and reporting hard truths about the powerful. And if so, how and why we, the people, all of us Americans, should care. When we speak of the future of journalism, let us fully understand that quality journalism of integrity is currently in decline and peril. Among many other reasons for this, the major ones are the overdone corporatization, politicalization, and trivialization of the news. Let us also be clear that the Internet will grow in depth and scope, that it is destined to become an even greater source of news than it is now, and may indeed, in my opinion, probably become a dominant one. That is not to say that it will completely, totally obliterate the printed page, radio, and television. It's not likely to do that, any more than radio wiped out newspapers, or any more than television wiped out both. But it's hard to imagine any future without the Internet becoming a major, if not, as I believe, the place that most Americans get most of their news. As we ponder that, we should remember that access to Internet news is not currently available for a large portion of the American public. The poor, including the working poor, those at or near the bottom of our economic system, they are in this, as in so many things and ways, the forgotten ones. And as news gathering, real news gathering, including foreign coverage and investigative reporting, continues shrinking, it is not just finding out what's going on, what is really going on inside City Hall, the county courthouse, the state legislature, Congress, and the war councils that is suffering. Coverage of the dispossessed, the homeless, the hungry, the helpless, and those who believe that they are without hope is declining precipitously, and in too many cases, in too many places, has disappeared. This, too, is what I'm talking about when I say that there is a crisis in American journalism. I've been working as a professional in news for more than 60 years, and never has the question about the future of news in its full dimension seemed less like a rhetorical question than it does now. To try to answer it, we need to look at a number of things that are happening now and have in fact been happening. Some of them, in one form or another, are over the past quarter century. One is the change in the model of news ownership. Another is technological change. And finally, there is a change in the way the news is thought of by news consumers. But first, and surmounting all of these, is the question of why Americans should care about what news is gathered, how it is reported and distributed, and by whom. We journalists have a professional stake in the news, that's understood. But are there reasons why citizens at large should care about the future of the news? As self-evident as it may seem to answer with a ringing affirmative, getting the American public to see that the answer is yes is probably the central challenge that those of us who care about the news must confront in order to ensure the future of news. News that can inform, enlighten, educate, and speaks truth to power and about power. The dimensions of this challenge become clearer with each new public opinion poll, showing that the regard in which journalism and journalists are held hovers somewhere between just barely north of that for such esteemed figures as, say, Bernie Madoff. In short, the American public has to understand and be reminded that when they hear people who work in the news plead for the preservation of quality news of integrity, that they are hearing us speak out of something beyond self-interest. This is not just another American business sector in jeopardy. This is an integral, perhaps the integral piece of our democratic infrastructure that's groaning and shaking and giving signals of imminent collapse. We have been told, in defense of the staggering sums our government is doling out to prop up banks, that the financial sector is one sector that simply cannot be allowed to fail because it represents the very heart and circulatory system of capitalism. The same case can, should, and needs to be made for the American press as the red, beating heart of freedom and democracy. I use the word press to refer to news delivered in all media because press serves as a reminder of the constitutional protections and implied responsibilities of journalism in our democratic republic. It was not for nothing that this nation's founding fathers placed freedom of the press right alongside freedom of speech and freedom of religion in the very first amendment to the Constitution, up at the top of the Bill of Rights. At the most basic level, a self-governing people needs information in order to govern. They need to know what issues are up for debate before Congress, state legislators, city councils, and in the Defense Department. They need to have impartially sourced information about those issues, and they need a means of distributing this information broadly in a huge continent-spanning nation of diverse ethnic, social, religious, and economic makeup such as ours. At a more crucial level, this is where the role of competitively healthy, independent, truly independent, and free press becomes indispensable. Democracy also requires the press to act as a check on power, to ferret out corruption in government, to bring to light issues that the powerful would rather not address, and in that famous quote about the role of a newspaper, to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. The Founding Fathers did not carve out a central place for the press in our republic because they loved journalists. Like many politicians, then and now, they did not. But rather because they loved freedom and democracy. As Thomas Jefferson once wrote, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be." This is the message that those who care and care deeply about the state of news absolutely need to convey to a broader public if a free press, as we have known it, is to survive in America, and by extension, freedom as we know it is to survive in America. Only once that message is disseminated, digested, and heeded will we have a chance of meeting the three core challenges facing the press that I spoke of at the outset.